Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
James sent me a note, and this is the kind of thing that is shocking. From the independent.co.uk, Justin Rorlick wrote it. Pentagon investigator admits to faking dozens of top secret security clearance background checks. I know people who've had to go through the top secret security clearance background checks, where they do things like interview your neighbors and your friends and really dig into your background. And it turns out that if this person was assigned to do the background check on you, you might have gotten through without much of a checking. Federal contractor tasked with performing background checks on Department of Defense employees seeking high-level security clearances admitted to submitting reams of bogus reports when she claimed to have thoroughly vetted candidates who, in fact, had not been properly checked out. In other words, she said, yeah, I actually spoke to their neighbor, and never spoke to the neighbor. Of 39 allegedly fraudulent investigations that she carried out over the course of more than a year for the Defense Counterintelligence Security Agency, at least a half dozen included fabricated interviews with people who later said they'd never heard from her at all. And that's all part of a plea agreement that has apparently been entered. The results of the background investigations conducted by her were used to determine whether to grant security clearances to individuals at various levels, including and up to top secret, sensitive, compartmented information, or TS/SCI. So that's part of the plea agreement, which was unsealed recently in California federal court. To conduct the investigations, she herself had that clearance. So I'll call her the defendant, is from Mission Viejo, worked at the time for a contractor, which was based in Virginia, that bills itself as being ever vigilant in helping our customers meet their greatest challenges in national security. Each of the 299 background investigations she turned in back in 2020, 2021, had to be reworked by the agency, costing taxpayers nearly $250,000 extra. Now, here's the thing. If the government hires a contractor and the contractor screws something up and has to redo it because one of their employees screwed up, why are taxpayers paying for that at all? Just a question. So the defendant was subsequently hired by two other companies to run background checks for the Department of Homeland Security, doing more than 600 of them until her past finally came back to haunt her, and she was removed from all DHS projects, according to the plea agreement. She is charged in June. Case has not been made public until now, and she has a court-appointed lawyer who did not respond to requests for comment. And so this is quite bizarre, because we've talked about this before, that, for instance, when there's tainted evidence in an evidence room, and they got to go back and reopen all the cases involving evidence from that evidence room. Well, now they got to go back and check every single person that she vetted to see whether or not she actually did anything. And it turns out that she turned in 299 background investigations for which taxpayers paid, which they have to repay. And I assume they got to double check to see if she actually did any of the work on any of those people. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is on the people she didn't vet, who got the clearance, then got access to top secret information. That's a problem also. So she pleaded guilty to one count of making false statements. That's a charge that carries up to 5 years in prison and $250,000 fine. In her case, however, prosecutors are recommending that she be sentenced to probation and home detention. And she'll be back in court shortly to see what will exactly happen to her. The story is quite lengthy, but it's a crazy concept. And so the weird thing is that the amount of work that's being sent out to contractors these days by businesses, by all kinds of entities, including the government. And so when you have the government, like the Pentagon or Department of Defense or whatever it might be, Homeland Security, and they say, hey, look, we need to have these people we're hiring or promoting checked to see if we can give them top secret clearance. We need to do that. You'd think they'd keep that job in-house. Now, I don't know why. It just seems to me that if there's a job that should be handled in-house, it would be checking security clearances for people who get access to top secret information. And don't get me wrong, contractors do a lot of good work, and a lot of the stuff they do is necessary, but the top secret security clearance background checks, it seems to me that should be kept in-house. Call me crazy, but I've known more than one person who got investigated for such a clearance, okay? They already had whatever the lower level clearance is, and they were told, we're going to need you to work on stuff where you're going to be exposed to things that are above your pay grade. So you're going to need to be subjected to this clearance, and if you pass, you get it, and we can work with you. If you don't get it, you don't pass. Number one, you're not going to get that clearance. Number two, we might have to fire you, depending on what they find, if they find something crazy. And so the types of people that they'll interview to get into your past, to find out if there's anything, back there, skeletons in your closet. They'll talk to your neighbors. They'll talk to your landlord. They'll poke around on social media, see who you know, see what you're talking about. And then they'll write up these reports and say, here's what we found. And I'm assuming that when she's faking a report, she's not claiming to have found things. Because if she claimed to find things, somebody might object and go, what? My neighbor never would have said that, because that's not true. So she's clearing people by saying, yeah, I interviewed all these people and found nothing, and yeah, go ahead and give it to them. And there's a reason they're doing the checks, because a lot of people have got stuff in their past that might disqualify them for such a clearance. I mean, and I know this is painfully obvious, but it's shocking to me that something like this could happen. And it's also shocking to me that when the company screws up and says, oh, we got to redo a whole bunch of these because one of our own employees screwed up, we'll just send you another bill, okay? Somebody should have said, no, that's on you. It's your mistake. You have workers who are billing us for work they didn't do, and you want to bill us again for the work when it gets done? We're not going to pay twice for that work. It should be done once and paid for once. So it's kind of bizarre, but I'm also very, very disappointed because the amount of penalties here is so small. One count, making false statements. 5 years in prison, possibly, and $250,000 fine. However, prosecutors are recommending she be sentenced to probation and home detention. And the irony of that is that when you go through the court system and you enter a guilty plea and you're going to be sentenced, the court will have you interviewed by somebody who will try to find out things about you to determine what an appropriate sentence might be. Sometimes they might even interview other people around you, sort of like a background check, because she is now banking on somebody performing a background check on her that's adequate. And I almost wish that you're allowed to give ironic punishments, because it'd be really, really telling if you were to say, you know something, you pled guilty to one count, prosecutors are recommending slap on the wrist, but we performed a fake background check on you. And the fake background check revealed all kinds of stuff that's not true. We're going to hold it against you. Okay? Okay. But again, I'm not a judge. I don't want to be a judge. And if I was a judge, I couldn't do that. But it certainly would be somehow fair on a cosmic level, right? So, amazing case. A Pentagon investigator has admitted to faking dozens of top secret security clearance background checks, which of course means that people got into jobs that they shouldn't have, most likely. And all kinds of work's got to get redone, which for some odd reason, taxpayers are footing the bill for, which I don't get that either. So James, thanks for sending that from the independent.co.uk. Justin Rorlick wrote it. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I stayed in a really old hotel recently. They sent me a wake-up letter.